Hello and good evening and welcome to GDPR Marketing Solutions weekly webinar number 2. I'm your host, Nick Griffith, and thanks for joining us if you're either listening live or you're listening on a recording. And these webinars are all about answering the questions. So if you have any questions at the end of tonight's webinar that you still have, or at the end of the recording, then please do send them or post them on Facebook, or send them to me directly, and put them in the chat, and let's get those marketing questions answered. At GDPR last week, on the last recording, there was I went into an introduction and to some marketing solutions, and this week is actually about another deep dive. I'm not going to introduce GDPR again. What I will do for anyone that's watching, this is the first recording, just go through some very, very quick points. So let's get started. What you're going to learn on this webinar, we're going to deep dive into GDP marketing solutions after a quick introduction. And I want to create marketing solutions which are all built around 4 pillars. They're simple to implement because there's a lot of GDPR, there's a lot of legal, there's a lot of checklists, there's a lot of things that you could be doing, should be doing, but I really want you to focus in on things that are simple to implement. You don't need to be a techie or a marketeer. I also want to focus in on things that are quick to implement. GDPR obviously goes live or becomes law on the 25th of May 2018. And depending on when you're listening to this video, it's either become law or it's certainly happening within the next couple of weeks. So speed is of the essence. Obviously, I want whatever advice I'm offering here or marketing solutions to be GDPR compliant. And I want them to be flexible, usable in any business. There's no best fit here. If you have data in your business, then GDPR is relevant. So I want the solutions that I'm suggesting to be templates that you could adapt and use in any of your businesses. So let's get started. I'm your host, Nick Griffith, and I just very quickly wanted to say that neither myself or any representatives of GDPR Marketing Solutions represent you, and we're not giving legal advice. This is the legal disclaimer, if you like, at the beginning of this video. The information and tools that are conveyed to this training are intended to help understanding and offer practical tools to help viewers with their marketing. So this is not legal advice, but this is information to help you get a better handle on and solutions for GDPR. I said I wouldn't go into GDPR in detail, but I've got one slide on it. The General Data Protection Regulation is designed to protect the data rights of the consumer. It's a big shift. And it comes into law on the 25th of May, 2018. It applies to all business-to-consumer data that is held or processed in the EU. So this applies to US companies if you've got European data on your database. It even applied to you if it was just US-only data, but it was being processed through an operator that was based in the EU. So broadly speaking, this pretty much applies to everybody. Certainly within the EU, it certainly applies to everybody, but the ripple and the rollout effect across all of Europe, and then eventually globally, means that even if you don't embrace this now, this is what is coming your way, particularly in the US. I used this slide on the last video, but I think that it's a nice summary of GDPR, and although it's simple in form, I think the complexity behind it. I think I'm right in saying there's over 120 articles. This is just page number 111. It's not bedtime reading. Let's put it that way. And if anybody could actually really define what this means in layman's terms, then I would welcome it in one sentence. But this is one of over 120 odd articles of GDPR. And if you're reading it going, what exactly does that mean to me as a small business owner, or as an entrepreneur, or even a medium-sized business owner, or anyone even that's operating marketing and data? What does it mean? When I read that, it leaves me, and this is somebody, and I've spent certainly the last good few months embracing, listening, reading what other people are saying, trying to get my hands around this. And reading that makes me confused and perplexed. So if that's how you feel, then that's normal. You're on the right side of where 99.9% of the population are. Even the lawmakers don't know exactly what all the minutiae are in the details. And I think that's a good reason, whether you're listening to this video or other experts, for you to actually seek out and try and find people that are already pushing forwards in this, and use them as a sounding board, use them as a resource, use the communities that have been built around them. Because for you to try and go top to bottom and all the understanding, it's not going to happen. And it's certainly not going to happen in a short time frame. So my advice is, whether it's marketing, whether it's legal, whether it's technical, whether it's a combination of that, and the purpose of these webinars is to focus on marketing, but to also come in and answer some of the legal and the technical bits, is to actually answer your questions here. And, really, bring those things to the surface, ask the experts, and anything that's not getting answered, bring it to the surface, and let's get that answered. I was going to put this in later in the slides, but in case you're rushing off, or in case there's something else you've got to be doing other than watching this, or you're watching the rest of the video later, I'm going to give you this slide now. It's almost, these are the immediate actions you should do. This is the final slide, but I'm giving it to you at the beginning. Download the free marketing taster pack, GDPR marketingsolutions.com. It's free. I created something to get you started. Some email templates, landing page templates, and instructions for use. You can do that before you go to sleep tonight. You can join the live weekly webinars if you're listening to this. You've already registered for the webinar. If you'd like to join in on future webinars, then I will put in a link. You can register for the weekly webinar. These are also free. You can download the free Legal Essentials checklist. This is one of the bonuses on the same website as the taster pack. So by downloading that, you automatically get access to the Legal Essentials checklist. And if I were you, I would draw a countdown between now and the 25th of May and map out what email campaigns you plan to do to your list. And I'm talking about your existing data. So whether you've got a week out or 2 weeks out, somewhere in the middle, draw out a plan of what you're going to send and when, because after the 25th of May, the game changes. You're not able to legally email your list without GDPR consent. So I strongly advise you to map out what you're going to be doing. Take a calendar and go, okay, we'll send an email tomorrow morning. We'll send a follow-up to that 2 days later. In fact, we're going to send another campaign with a different type of email next Monday, and we'll follow up with that on the Wednesday. That's the sort of thing. And then you're committing to it, so you can orientate your team around it, and you can create the content for that. But that's what I would strongly advise you to do. And I'll also offer a link at the end to a great sort of legal resource, which is a legal pack. It comprises of privacy policy, a cookies policy, and a rights of use. So these three sort of templates are sort of almost fill in the blanks legal documents. Then this is from the GDPR privacypolicy.org, which is I'll share the link. I've got a special link for you to use at the end. But yes, you need to update your core documents, your core legal documents for your website. So it is marketing. strictly speaking, this is the legal bit of it all, which is why I've partnered with a business that's already written these templates for you to use. And these weekly webinars, and what does GDP Marketing Solutions offer? Well, in the weekly webinars, there's strategies in terms of overcoming some of the specifics, but also some of the big picture. Copy templates. When I say copy, some people say to me, what is copy? Well, copy is email, words, newspapers is copy. Even writing a card to somebody is copy. Even a text message is copy. But copy templates for emails, landing pages, and web pages. So I'm going to go out and I'm looking daily and I'm writing daily fresh copy, and I'm looking at what works, what doesn't work, what I like the look of, what I get feedback from. So these webinars are here to share some of the highlights from this. Funnels and campaign maps for easy implementation. Now, in another call, I'm going to actually share with you a map of what it looks like, how you would plan out the next 14 days, and after GDPR go live, what you would do with your marketing as well. So actual maps, but I have a slide coming up in this talk as well, which shows you some of the high level of where you would use consent forms. So Q&A, of course. And of course, expert interviews. This is not just about marketing and my ideas, but also other people and marketing and their ideas on what's working for them and what they've seen and heard. So really, it's all about marketing solutions for GDPR. And of course, don't forget, you can go and download the taster pack at that URL at the bottom, gdprmarketingsolutions.com. Marketing solutions for before the 25th of May. And today's spotlight, I thought it would be good, since the first video, if you haven't watched it yet, covered the email and the copy, the text for using in an email to send out to your list to get them to re-opt in or re-engage. And also it covered some of the text for the landing page and also some instructions for use. I thought today's call would be good to put a spotlight on how to build a simple GDPR compliant, I've called it a consent funnel, but it's about getting your list to give you consent to continuing the marketing. What is consent? Well, I think we all probably know what consent is. In the real world, when I say in the real world, obviously, when you're speaking to someone, do I have your consent to do this? Do I have your consent to do that? But consent in a GDPR, in a data sense, is driven by, there's a few principles which are written into the GDPR law. Consent has to be given freely. So you can't ask for something and the consent, that you're giving them back something based on whether they give their consent or not. It's got to be free to be given. So a good example of that is quite simply, I'm offering, for example, a piece of content, and you may say, well, you can't have this piece of content until you give me your consent. Post GDPR, that is no longer allowed. That has to be freely available. It has to be specific and relevant. So if you are building a list of inquiries for people in your business, and you're offering something which is relevant, which is a free lead magnet for people to register their information and provide consent, the two have to tie together. You wouldn't be talking about a discount on your car repairs if you were a hair salon. That is completely irrelevant. Unambiguous. And these are some of the pillars with which I use to sort of drive how I write the text. But unambiguous, it is as it sounds. Wishy-washy, no. Think about how the language that you write into your consent would stand up if you were under investigation by the regulator, or even, if you were in a court of law. if buts and maybes is not the kind of language you're looking for in your consent. Granular permission. Well, this is really, you can't have an all-encompassing consent yes, no option on your form to say, yes, I really want to join your monthly newsletter. And on the back of that, you can then send me all of your new products. You can send me all of your marketing materials. You can send me. That is not granular. That is an all-encompassing. Click this one box, and we'll put you on our list for everything. If you were interested in marketing other products and services that you operate as a business owner, which are outside of that company, that would be a layer of consent that you would add to the permission. So it's about chunking it up from what you're offering through to actually perhaps all the different areas that it might cover. Consent campaign. Well, the campaign of, I say a campaign, really it's just a plan. The gaining consent from your list, I think, falls into these following areas. It's really, you don't just go back to your list. You can and ask for permission. If you go back to your lists, it's about building goodwill. It's actually about reminding them they want to be on their list, what they're going to miss out on if they don't. So whether this involves giving them content without them having to opt in, you're not even asking for permission yet, you're just giving them content. You're stepping up your program of content. So if you're giving them content, you're giving them some of the best bits, and you're giving it to them on a more regular basis. Make sure you stand out from the pack. You're not someone who's being lazy and is giving them something once a month, or giving them something that's a couple of years old. Dust off the covers, refresh something, give your list a reason to stay on the list. Building goodwill. Now, segment your list. I think this could be more relevant than even I first thought, because that you're only focusing on the content, on the contacts in your list that are based in the EU. And I was listening to some other webinars and some other content from US-based companies. And this is the key part of it all, because for them, the majority of their contacts aren't even in the EU and don't actually fall under GDPR. But for yourself, there's no assumption that your contacts are either mostly in the EU or the minority. If they have any contacts in the EU, then it applies. But you want to know who you're focusing on, because if, let's say, you have a list of 10,000 people, and 80% of them you can prove are not UK-based or EU-based, then your whole program of consent is only focused on the 20% that aren't for now, certainly in this tight time frame. So segmenting your list based on where they're based is a key part of this. Then, of course, there's the re-engagement itself. That's a campaign, and it would comprise of a series, never just one, but a series of emails. And I've actually got a map here of what a consent and how a campaign might map out. But it is more than one email or more than one request. You're going to be doing this several times. So the campaign is going to be period over days and weeks. And then, and this is, I've heard different people approach this in different ways, but the consent campaign actually, if it ends when the date kicks in, and I've heard a good number of people now say those that they haven't gained consent from after a good, well, in their case, they started this consent campaign 2 months out. But I'm recording this, and the GDPR goes live in 2 weeks. So there's only 2 weeks to go. So you can only do what you can do in the time. But after that, GDPR goes live, they are removing these contacts from their database. So the consent campaign is split into those areas. Where to add consent? And when I say where to add consent, I'm talking about a consent link or a consent form that is then trackable and falls into the points that I mentioned earlier about it being unambiguous, about clear, etc., etc. So a good example might be you have a CRM system and you're able to, by somebody clicking on a link in an email, that is, by clicking on that link and the text in there, that could be one way to extract explicit permission if you have a CRM system that can update that person's profile with the appropriate details. Another way, of course, is a consent form, and I've got an example of that. So where to add consent? I wanted to share because there's more than one way to skin this cat. A marketing email. So if you've got an advanced CRM, for example, Infusionsoft, if you're sending out an email and it's very explicit, it ticks all the boxes, the person doesn't have to leave the email, all they have to do is click on the link, and then that gives consent, for example, for them to stay on the newsletter, that would be good enough. So that is them staying in the email, shall we say, ecosystem. They could do that from their phone, they could do that from their tablet, they could do that from their laptop, computer, and they don't have to leave the email to go and provide consent. But your CRM system has to be able to track, not just they click a link, but clicked that link, and then their profile has now been updated as been given consent. So there's a little bit of technology in the background of that, depending on which CRM system you're using. And if you've got questions, then do ask. It's an area that we might cover in a future call. A landing page. This will be most people's solution. So the marketing email takes somebody to a landing page. Landing page, quite simply, first name, last name, email address, something as simple as that, with the yes, no, consent options on that form, along with the description of what they're agreeing to. And I've got an example on a future thing. So that we'll call that the landing page. Then, and you by the way, these are ideas. You can pick and choose what you like the look of yourself. So the consent page is actually almost a mimic of the landing page. It's, I think, put into another layman's terms, is if you buy something and you get automatically diverted to a one-click upsell, this is what the consent page is. Perhaps they didn't do it on the first pass and they're using, they go straight through. And so the consent page itself, because the fields are not mandatory on the landing page, the consent page gives you a second bite of the cherry. I would say, depending on which ones you want to use, depends on what your business model is. One size doesn't necessarily fit all, and different things might suit your brand and your company differently. So these are ideas. The delivery email itself. So if someone's downloading a free report and you email them to say, here's the free report, then you've got an opportunity in that email to send them a link to go and ask for their consent again. So the delivery email itself is another opportunity. And I thought that was a good one too. The lead magnet itself. So you can embed, I had someone say, I've got hundreds of lead magnets. So they've got a task on to update all of these. But if you're creating lead magnets, then put in consent and links to consent within your lead magnets itself. It's also good marketing if those magnets get shared with other parties. Then it's an opportunity for new people to join the list too. So they are several ideas for you to have a think of where to add the consent form. And I thought, GDPR, funnel tools in terms of what could be providing something. I thought MailChimp, I went to check them out today, and they're updating their back office and they're providing GDPR compliant consent forms in the solution. So if you're thinking, I don't know what all this means, I know I've got a business and I've got a list, it's not very big. I'm keeping things simple. I'm just using MailChimp for now. MailChimp, if you haven't heard of it, is a free email marketing piece of software for those that have a list of under 2,000. And it's a great place to start. And they are offering GDPR compliant forms within their solutions. So all you'd have to do is go into MailChimp and Google and search under what forms and GDPR compliant forms, and that will get you started. ClickFunnels is a tool that I use, and the screen I share next is a ClickFunnels form. Infusionsoft is a more advanced CRM. For those of you who are using it, then I would have thought that this would be a good place to create your form so that it updates the customer records. If you're a beginner starter business, then I would say the Infusionsoft is a more advanced tool, more expensive tool to use. And, there's going to be a lot of solutions within the MailChimp arena. This is not all solutions. This is just to share some ideas for you to get started. And this is the GDPR consent form that I created in ClickFunnels. And you can see here, it's broadly speaking, it's got a title in here. It's got what people are agreeing to, their first name, their last name, their email address, and then the yeses and the nos in the drop downs. And then the button's very clear as to what they're subscribing to. So I think that this is a good example here of just keeping it simple and unambiguous. People know what they're agreeing to. It's a free GDPR monthly marketing pack. That's the title of the page. And if they've forgotten what that is by the time they get to the bottom, on the orange button is they click to subscribe to the free monthly marketing pack. So it does what it says on the tin. Marketing solutions before the 25th of May. So before you go, this is what's available at gdprmarketingsolutions.com. My Marketing Solutions Taster Pack. Please do go and download that if you haven't already. It's free to get stuck in. Feel free to use and copy and share the content that's in there. It's there to help you get your handle on this and get some momentum and start to do something about this. And on this basis too, next week's webinar, I'm going to be sharing more on marketing strategies, new copy ideas, campaign maps and funnels. I showed you something simple in this call, which I hope you found useful, but there's a lot more detail that can come out of this. And so more campaign ideas and maps, and of course, Q&A. If you are still scratching your head and looking for help, here are some solutions for you here. VIP pack will be available. Go to gdprmarketingsolutions.com VIP pack. For a legal pack, go to bit.ly GDPR legal pack for a special link there, and that will give you the tools that will make your website legally compliant. That is a legal solution here. I didn't create it. Data protection specialists, they created that, a legal practice. So those are legal documents created by a legal firm. And if you've got any questions or you've got one-to-one help and you'd like a free 15-minute consultation, then just email me, nick@nickgriffith.com. And this webinar will be back weekly, 7:30. So it'd be great to have your questions and have you on the next call. And thank you very much for your time.